Paul Winter here. Thank you for the opportunity to take part in your conference. I love your theme, to revive education and creativity based on the human sense of hearing. This is something I've been tooting my horn about for years. I'll state my manifesto here at the beginning. I feel that awakening our listening faculty may be the saving grace for our visually inebriated and wayward species. My quest for many years has been to explore how this untapped sense can lead us to falling in love with our true home, the world of nature. I'd like to share with you some of my adventures with music, along with some insights about music and listening and the possibilities for music in this world. Jazz has been my passport to the world. All of this arose for me through my experience with jazz. My whole life has been catalyzed by what I call the jazz spirit, which I sum up with the single word, welcome. This was the spirit that I felt from those big bands of my youth. It was us music, grounded in the democracy of ensemble, rather than the me music of virtuoso soloists, and as well embraced the people who were dancing to it. I grew up in a railroad town in central Pennsylvania called Altoona. It was the headquarters of the Pennsylvania Railroad, and from the 19th century on, the railroad imported many artisans from a diversity of countries in Europe. So I had this wonderful array of cultures growing up and was fortunate to have had a kind of balanced introduction to music. On the one hand, starting from the age of 7, taking piano lessons from a very, very wonderful but strict German lady, totally classical. And then I learned clarinet from a Sicilian man, John Monti, who saw that not only I learned the basic classical principles, but was also introduced to jazz. And the jazz of that era in the 40s was big band music, which I loved. In high school, I formed a dance band. And then when I went to college in Chicago, it morphed into a bebop jazz sextet. During my last month in college, our sextet won an intercollegiate jazz festival, for which we received a recording contract with Columbia, which is beyond our wildest dreams. And then the U.S. State Department sent us on a 6-month goodwill tour of Latin America through 23 countries. Here we are playing in Brazil.
Paulo Winter e seu sexteto traduzem a alma trepidante dos jovens de todo o mundo. Os moços músicos americanos, durante 6 meses, percorreram quase toda a América Latina numa viagem de boa vontade musical. No Brasil, visitaram 13 cidades, inclusive Porto Alegre e Belém.
Our experiences in these countries was a revelation, and I realized that the world is a vast smorgasbord of musical traditions. The music of Brazil was especially alluring to me, so I went back there to live for a year in the mid-60s. The gentle music of bossa nova, as well as falling in love with cello and the music of the great composer Villa-Lobos, led me toward a vision of another kind of ensemble, as a forum for all the musics that I loved. I called this new group a consort. During our first year, in 1968, we had a lucky break. We were invited to play in the Israel Festival through a connection of our percussionist, a young Israeli woman named Ruth Ben-Zvi, who played the darbuki and was then living in New York City. We loved our experience in Israel. We toured for 2 weeks for the festival and then stayed on for another month. Here's a photo of us before our concert in Caesarea. You can see here the instrumentation of this new group. I aspired to having a particular sound texture in this ensemble. We played a gamut of music. Here was the first piece that I arranged for the group. Then here is our interpretation of a folk theme we heard in a piano piece by Bela Bartok. It's called The Ballad in 7/8. And at the other extreme, we played music that was entirely spontaneous. Here's a piece that we improvised together on a 5-note scale from a Japanese koto. Our cellist and English horn player had never improvised before, and the organic soulfulness of this free polyphony convinced me that any people can improvise freely together. So from this grew a tradition of workshops that I call Adventures in Sound Play, and we include people from all kinds of backgrounds, including folks who have never even played an instrument before. The great clue that we stumbled into was turning out the lights. When you listen in the dark, you hear vastly more than if you were watching something, and you also very quickly lose your self-consciousness. So it becomes a kind of collective yoga. It's not about producing music for performance. It's beyond art. It's about life. It's often very cathartic and empowering for people. A pertinent quote for the sound play approach is, "The woods would be very silent if the only birds that sang were those that sing the best." That's from a man named Henry Van Dyke. I came to realize from these experiences in sound play one profound wisdom, that expression is the chief fulfillment in life. It's not about consumption, not about what you take in, it's about what you give out that awakens your heart and your soul. And small music groups are where this can happen. As much as I love symphonic music and always will, playing in a symphony can be a dead end. I encourage people to learn to play by ear. Orchestral players play by eye. Every note, every sound they make throughout their lives is written on paper by somebody else. They are simply following instructions every minute of their musical lives. It's just like being in an army. From the standpoint of the individual player, this is no way to live your life, no way to develop your own creative soul. You go to the army for 2 years, and then you return to your private life where hopefully you get to make choices about what you do. I feel the same way about orchestral players. It's great to do for a while, especially when you're in school, and it's great fun to be in a large ensemble. The most dynamic and genuinely enthusiastic orchestra I ever heard was the Yale Symphony Orchestra, comprised entirely of students who were not music majors. So having discovered my calling with jazz, and then discovering the world through travel, the next realm was the world of nature and the greater family of life. In the late 60s, I attended a lecture on whale songs by a biologist named Dr. Roger Payne, and the poignant, bluesy, yearning voices of the humpback whales changed my life. They opened for me the door to what I call the greater symphony of the earth. Roger's 1970 album, The Songs of the Humpback Whale, touched the hearts of millions of people around the world and probably did more for the cause of keeping whales from extinction than all the books and talks and symposia put together. Here is a recent performance of an improvisation with a humpback whale song by our cellist Eugene Friesen and keyboardist Paul Sullivan. In the 1970s, I also became fascinated with wolves. I learned that they are quite admirable creatures who are a vital part of our ecosystem and who are not a threat to humans. I wrote this honoring song to this remarkable creature who has been so maligned and mistreated by humans for so long. The seed theme comes from the howl of a timber wolf recorded in northern Minnesota. It's entitled Wolf Eyes. I feel we have much to learn from these elders of ours. These noble species, the wolves and the whales, have been around for about 30 million years, which is about 100 times as long as our species, Homo sapiens, has been around. Nature has produced billions of experiments over the eons, and all those who were not able to find how to live in harmony with their environment went extinct. Whales and wolves are among the rare exceptions that did learn how. We humans have not yet done so, and the jury is still out on whether or not we will learn how to do it. We are the youngest of all 20 million species or so on Earth, and we are just in our adolescence and behaving like juvenile delinquents. Much waits on our maturation. I want to say something regarding education. Playing music supposedly awakens our intelligence. Studies have shown that it improves kids' abilities to learn, and maybe for those of us over 39 also, and that they do better in math and other subjects. If this is true, then why aren't we enabling kids to make music every day instead of subjecting them to endless hours poring over words and other left brain activities in square rooms in rows of chairs? It makes me wonder if a great part of our whole educational system is not absurd. I've always marveled at this unique characteristic of music, that if you are allured to a piece of music, you can listen to it countless times, and somehow the ear doesn't tire of it. It's as if it always reawakens what the Zen people call beginner's mind. Whereas the eye always wants something new, new, is the frenzy that our cultures are riddled with. For example, the most beautiful coffee table books of photos goes on the shelf after you've seen it once. The eye doesn't want to visit it again. It's already seen it. And I think this is because hearing resonates with the whole body, whereas the eye simply feeds into the cerebral cortex, which is constantly in overwhelm and remembers little. How much of what we read do we remember? It's as if the mind is a forgetting machine. The body remembers, the mind forgets. This is something I wish scholars would explore, and perhaps they already have. I want to tell a favorite story of mine about Israel, one that I heard on our first visit in 1968. It's a story from the Six-Day War, which took place the year before. An American reporter was staying at the Dan Hotel in Tel Aviv when the war began, and the guests were all confined to the hotel. Their only information was coming from the radio, but soon the radio blacked out all the news and just played old pioneer Israeli songs throughout the day, nonstop. This man, with everybody else, just sat around the lobby each day, waiting for some news. Tensions had become quite high, and suddenly, on the afternoon of the fourth day, the pioneer music stopped and the radio began to play Bach. And all the Israelis in the lobby became animated and excited. And the reporter turned to one and said, "What's happening? What does this mean?" And the man said, "That means everything is going to be all right." They only had to play Bach. Bach was a message that spoke to everyone. And I remember thinking, that's the way to run a culture. I want to play one final piece. It's a new piece based on the song of a wood thrush who returned to the forest near my home 5 summers in a row singing the same song in C major. The 4 3-note phrases of his song happen to outline the first 4 chords of the C major prelude of Bach's Well-Tempered Clavier. With the recorded voice of the wood thrush, along with the harmonies of Bach and rhythmic energy of Brazil, I aspired to create a piece that would convey the same life-affirming spirit that I hear in every wood thrush song. We call this the Well-Tempered Wood Thrush. I'm convinced that our listening faculty is the gateway to the deeper instincts of our human nature. My aspiration is to awaken in listeners a deeper sense of relatedness to and a living resonance with the entire community of life, with the earth and with the cosmos. Music can take us there if it has sublime beauty. I have no illusion that my rarefied music can quell the juggernaut of mass media culture, but we each must do what we can and be grateful for those who are willing to listen. My realm is that of the rare birds, people whose ears are connected to both their hearts and their heads. If enough people come to cherish the earth as their home and are willing to fight for it with their innate parental instincts for protecting family and home, there is a chance for us to turn around this downward spiral of climate chaos, biodiversity loss, and the plagues of destruction we have set in motion. An awakening of heart can bring this about. Information, no matter how shocking, how eloquent, is quickly forgotten. It's the way we function as human beings. The heart remembers, the mind forgets. Finally now, I would like to tell you about our project that is entitled Flyways. This is the biggest thing I've ever tackled. It's a celebration of the great bird migration that goes from southern Africa up the Rift Valley through the Middle East to Europe and Asia, and then back 6 months later. 500 million birds of over 300 species make this journey. I became aware of it in 1993 after we played a concert at the Mann Auditorium in Tel Aviv, and a man came backstage and introduced himself and said, "My name is Yossi Leshem, I'm an ornithologist, and I'd love to show you something about my work with the migrating birds and see if you might want to do something with them as you have with the whales and the wolves." We were enthralled with his work. He invited us to come back in 1995 to play a concert in the Negev for his organization, the Society for Protection of Nature in Israel. And we arrived at the airport in Tel Aviv, and he met us there. He said, "I've got a van for the band, I'll take them down, but I want to take you a different way." He drove me north to Galilee Airport and put me in a 2-person glider piloted by a former Air Force pilot. And we took off and soared up among the migrating storks, turned off the motor, and became part of this amazing slow-motion ballet with hundreds of storks beautifully spiraling their way south. After a while, we turned off the motor, flew down over Jerusalem, landed in Negev. On that journey, I had the idea of creating a chronicle of the bird's long journey, using indigenous music of the cultures over which they fly. In the last few years, we've gone to most of those countries and came to realize that the indigenous music and cultures are as endangered as the birds. So it's become a double-themed project. It's about 90% done now. I'm hoping to complete it soon, and the culmination of it will be bringing together one musician from each of the 16 cultures into what we call the Great Rift Valley Orchestra. Here are 2 excerpts from the trailer for Flyways on our website, flywaysmusic.org.
Each spring, more than 500 million birds of 350 species follow the Great Rift Valley up the length of the African continent from South Africa to Ethiopia and continue over the Middle East to Turkey, where they then diverge to Europe and Asia. This flyway is one of the most important bird migration corridors in the world. I'm Paul Winter, and I first experienced the miracle of the migration some years ago when I flew in a glider across Israel with the migrating storks, as they soared on the thermal currents coming up from the Rift Valley below. From that unforgettable adventure came the vision for this project, to create a musical chronicle of the bird's long journey, using music from each of the cultures over which they fly, and weaving the voices of the birds into the fabric of the music. The name of the project is Flyways. The Flyways composition, which we will present in a CD, DVD, and concert program, will feature music and musicians from 16 countries of the migration route, along with my colleagues of the Paul Winter Consort. We have, to date, done field recording in 5 countries of Africa, having begun in southwest Ethiopia, in the heart of the African Rift Valley.
Before this second excerpt, I want to explain that my research partner for the Flyways Project is Chris Berry, a young musician who had lived actually for 7 years in Zimbabwe, knows the Bantu languages, and has been a great collaborator for the whole project.
The motto of the Flyways Project is, "Migrating birds know no borders." Beneath this overarching aerial highway live millions of people of different races and religions. The Flyway embraces all these cultures, and we feel that the timeless languages of birds and music have the potential to bring us together in common cause. The birds belong to everyone, and the music can awaken the universal heart of humanity.
So if music is the food of love, then I need song. And if your song can lift me up higher, then sing me one. And if rhythm is the healing of the nation, then play that drums. We got to find a way, yeah. Find a way.
I want to close from a quote from our great American composer Charles Ives. "The future of music may not lie entirely with music itself, but rather in the way it makes itself a part with, in the way it encourages and extends, rather than limits, the aspirations and ideals of the people, the finer things that humanity does and dreams of." Thank you all for listening. Maybe someday I'll get to play the music of Flyways in Israel, and if so, I look forward to meeting all of you. Toda rabah and shalom.